friends, we are going to talk about a hot topic today, and that is realistically downsizing government. This is a huge question. Government, I think a lot of people feel like government has just gotten out of control in our time, but how do we backtrack? How do we reduce the size? And I think bottom line is only one answer. We're going to have to make some hard decisions. Just like with our personal finances, if there's not enough money, you have to make sacrifices. And nobody likes that, of course. We want to have everything our little hearts desire. But when the money isn't there, we have to make changes. So I think these are some of the hard questions we'll have to answer if we want to downsize our government. First and very foremost is what funds are actually available without debt? Oh, that's a hard one, isn't it? Because we have learned to live on debt and credit at both the personal level and the government level. And the only way to fix it at some point is to draw a line and say we're not going to acquire more debt. We have to do it personally, and we have to do it in governing bodies. Next question, as part of how we answer that one, is what services and functions currently being provided by the government, whether it's local, state, or federal, what services and functions are essential? There are some that are kind of non-negotiable. We have to find a way to make it happen. What are optional and what are luxury? And that's where the gray area comes, and that's where the fighting usually starts. And then I'm going to throw in one that I don't feel gets discussed enough. And that is what services and functions are better provided by charitable organizations. One of the things I think we've seen in the last few decades is a decline in things like soup kitchens or reuse clothing, those kind of operations run by charitable organizations. Ministry to the homeless, ministry to families. A lot of that used to be provided by our neighborhood churches. And there are, of course, great examples of people still doing this. But I think if we looked at the big picture, that's changed quite a bit. And government has begun to seep into those areas. And what you find is the dollars aren't spent as efficiently when it becomes a government service as they are when it's a charitable service. So I think that's something we can think about in the concept of reducing the size of our government. Another question, what founding principles can we go back to in answering the questions and guiding our decision making as we look to reducing government? And this is one of my favorite soapboxes, okay? So I say it a lot, but I think small government leads to big opportunities. We want people to have reasons to be inspired to provide goods and services to our communities. If the government's doing anything, there's no motivation on the part of the private individual to achieve and succeed and be innovative and creative in providing what our communities need. So, how can we encourage small businesses to fill in gaps that government might now be providing? And I don't mean subsidies, maybe some benefits to get them started, but I don't mean government subsidies that are endless. Okay, that's not productive. We need businesses to come into a free market, thrive, and then, succeed or fail on their own merits. That's how it's always been, and that's a good mindset. It causes people to be motivated. When government provides every service, many things become necessary. And yes, I'm using air quotes because not everything that the government provides is necessary in our current culture. There are things that a free market would not support. That's what commerce and trade and the free market and capitalism has always been about is, what is supply and demand asking for? If there's no demand, why are we supplying some things? It doesn't make financial sense at all. And then another founding principle that I think we need to look back to as we consider how to realistically downsize government, and that is the decentralization of power. We have really noticed in this pandemic how the centralization of power is affecting our day-to-day lives. And one of the harshest examples, and maybe the scariest right now, is the empty shelves at our stores and our grocery stores. We've so centralized our food production and supply that we're now running into some problems. Should give us pause to think about how we can correct that by bringing small business and local production back into play. Bottom line, just like we have to do in our own lives, our government needs to make some hard decisions. We need to deal with the realities of budget size and debt, and we need to consider where we can cut back and how we can keep those entities, those services, cut back to what really is necessary by a federal government or a state government or a local government, and then get out of the way for small business and people to provide everything else. So here's my question for today's video. How would you downsize government? Some interesting answers to that question.